Hello. I intended to do this live last night and then I got super distracted because I ended up talking to someone on the phone that grew up in the ATI and the IBLP. And I was going to do a live last night and then I was like, okay, well, I had to talk on the phone to this person. And after talking to them, it was like 1:30 in the morning. It was a late night. So while I was cleaning today, I was listening to Gil Bates on his little sermons on his, I'm sorry, you guys, I blow dried my hair. And when I was putting my hairspray on, because it's like super staticky right now, a chunk of it just like fell on my head and now it's just like gross. Anyways, I spent like last night on the phone with people from, the ETI and stuff, and I am going to turn off comments here. So I get the frustration that fans feel when you have loved someone so much and you have been lied to about who that person is, or you have just not seen the totality of what they're involved in and you are misled. And the fact of who they are portrayed on the show versus who they are in reality doesn't match. For years, I have said point blank that reality television is not reality. The Bates and the Duggars, every single thing that you see on those shows is organized by the network, facilitated by the network, put together by the network, and would not be something the family would normally do without the network's income, revenue, and all of that. So when you're watching a show and you think that you know this family, you don't know the family. You know the family in the context of the editing and what the producers decide to put on the show. What they're not putting on the show is the stuff that will not air, that will not be, if there's racism, if there's homophobia, if there's any sort of, xenophobia or any sort of classism, like anything that would take sponsors to go into a different direction, it's going to be cut and it's going to be put on the floor. They're going to get rid of it. They have no problem putting the sexism on and the complete misogyny because they're fine with that. It is fine to hate women in today's day and age for sponsors, but it's not tolerated to hate anybody else. And that's a good thing. The problem is that when you're getting the watered down version of these people, you don't know the real people. So I'm sorry if I'm shattering your reality by telling you that Gil Bates is a leader of a destructive, authoritarian cult that is based on patriarchal sex. I don't know what else to do. I'm not going to stop being like an advocate for the voices of the people that literally have been hurt and abused and harmed by Gil. There are so many victims when Gil was in the leadership. He's still in the leadership. In 2014, a lawsuit was filed against the IBLP and their board members and Bill Gothard. In the lawsuit, there was a ton of, I don't even know how many total people, 17 maybe. There was a ton of people. There was sexual abuse. There was forced labor. There was sexual assault. There was sexual harassment. There was human trafficking. There were people that were forced to work at the compounds for no money. Families that were ripped apart because Bill Gothard in the 1980s decided that people that were adopted weren't really part of the family. And so literally while he was leading the organization, he flat out told families that if you have an adopted child, they need to be a servant and a slave to your family to earn their keep. So families that had children that were adopted began horrifically abusing their adopted children because they were not natural children, they were adopted. Because of that, children that were adopted that were a part of the IBLP became targets for their family members where they were abused, raped, forced to work for free, the list goes on and on. There are allegations in there of people literally being raped by Bill Gothard. There are allegations of when these things were being reported to the leaders and to the people and to the board, they just blamed the victims and said that it didn't happen. When all of this came forward, they brought it to the board and they did a fictitious sham of an investigation, which did not have a disinterested third party looking at it. Instead, they used an attorney who's also in the IBLP, who looked at all of these allegations, completely and utterly dismissed every single one of them, put out all of the evidence that they claimed that they had, which outed the victims, told the victims' names, and also on top of that, exposed the victims to further ridicule, shame, trauma from other members within the group. Gil Bates was on the board that allowed this investigation to be released so that victims of sexual abuse were humiliated by the organization. If you sit here and say that Gil Bates and his family are better than the Duggars, no. No good human under any circumstances would allow a victim of sexual assault to be placed in a position where they are put into a sham investigation, outed then as a victim, and then thrust into the public of the IBLP where they're going to get blamed, shamed, and told that they deserved to be abused. Gil Bates does not believe that marital rape is real. He does not believe that sexual assault is real. That's why he never talks about it. They are taught in this cult that sexual assault is the fault of the victim for what they wore, how they acted, what they did. And then if it's not their fault, then they're told, well, God was just trying to teach you a lesson and you are now going to have a mighty spirit for God. And so therefore it's your gift that you were raped. Imagine being raped by your husband, your brother, and your dad. And then the leaders of your church say, well, it's a gift from God. Now you have a mighty spirit. That's what they tell women when they come forward. They're not believed. They protect the predators. And Gil Bates specifically was picked by Bill Gothard because of his loyalty and adherence to Bill. He was so utterly loyal to Bill that Bill knew that he would never deviate from his wants, desires, and needs and would always defend and protect him. He specifically picked people to be on his board, including Chad Payne's dad, who is Aaron Bates's husband, because they were so loyal to Bill that they would allow Bill's crimes to go unpunished. That's no different than Jim Bob Duggar covering up for Josh Duggar's sexual abuse. Jim Bob Duggar learned how to do this through the IBLP leadership. Bill Gothard taught all the men in this cult how to sexually abuse, how to get away with it, and how to cover it up. Gil Bates is no better than any of them. And anyone that comes out of this world, most of the men are predators, just by the virtue of the fact that they were in the world. Some men are not, but a lot of them are, because there's nothing protecting a woman, and there's always an excuse to explain away what a man does. If you care about the truth and you care about the victims, you don't question them in the comments and say that it's unfair to go after the Bates and target them. It's unfair to call them out because they're different. No, they're not. They're not different. They are still dangerous. Gil Bates is dangerous for covering up and contributing to sexual harassment and sexual abuse of people and not helping them. In no other world would that be tolerated or allowed. If that happened in the public schools, he would have been fired. If that would have happened in corporate America, he would have lost his job. But in the IBLP, he still has a board. And everyone says, well, he kicked out Bill Gothard of this cult. Okay, after there was so much public backlash and Bill Gothard had to leave the association or the entire organization was going to flounder, he left. They have not abandoned a lick of the teachings of Bill Gothard. So he might have escorted him off the property, but they're still promoting the basic seminar, the advanced seminar, and the ATI, which was all written by Bill Gothard. They have not changed any of their curriculum. They have not changed any of their viewpoints. They have not changed any of it, because their argument is that it was not the fault of the curriculum or the belief. It was because Bill was a fallen man and he sinned. It wasn't the fault of this, but it was the fault of the way that Bill built this organization so that he would never be able to get in trouble. So if you can still, after learning all of that, say that the Bates are different because they have a better package for you and they are more tolerable and palpable and like palatable to you, I can't do anything to change your mind. But I'm not going to be shamed or degraded and said that I'm bullying or going after these innocent people. Innocent people don't cover up abuse, sexual abuse, child abuse. Innocent people don't advocate for the paddlings, beatings, and breaking the will of a child through 2 hours of spankings. He doesn't care if you don't like him either. I have to tell you this. Gil Bates and Kelly Bates do not give a shit if you don't like them, because they will justify that as a persecution against their Christianity and say that you are not a chosen person. They truly believe they are superior to you, that they have some knowledge that you do not have, which is the exact qualification of and a red flag for a cult. If someone tells you that they have the secret that nobody else has, and because you follow them, they believe you and you are the chosen one, you're in a cult. You are in a cult if they control what you wear, what you listen to, who your friends are, what kind of shows you can watch, what kind of food you can eat, if you can drink alcohol or not, if you can listen to rock music or country music. Do you know the massive hypocrisy of Gil Bates is in this fall on like October? He's preaching to his congregation about how people that listen to country music, rock music, and pop music are evil. And that it's the evils of pop music, country music, and rock music that is ruining our society. His own son is trying to be a country music player or singer, Lawson, and he promotes country music when he makes a video. And he's like, oh, we're so proud of him. So as long as Gil can profit off of it, he will excuse any of the things that he's on the pulpit like screaming about. If you are mentally ill, he doesn't give a shit. He will tell you that you didn't obey your parents, you don't have enough faith, you're not godly enough, and if you just were more obedient, you would not have mental health issues. He doesn't give a shit that you're poor. If you're poor, it's because you, again, don't have faith. He doesn't care if you're anything. That's what I'm saying. He will justify all of it. And he says it consistently in his sermons. All you have to do is listen, where he literally tells people, we don't care about these people because we don't want to be like them. They're not like us. They're wrong. They're what's wrong with America. They also don't respect the American government, and they don't respect the law. So they want to legislate things for you and take away your rights, but they don't care that it's like legal. Like he's flat out said in his sermons, it doesn't matter to him that gay marriage is legal, period. Just because it's legal doesn't make it wrong. He does not care. He is going to every single day tell people that they are evil, that they just need to be more godly, that the gay people are the reasons for all the problems in America, along with country music and women having jobs. But all of his kids work only to a point. Only to a point. Every one of his daughters are not full-time employees, and if they are, their kids are with them. Their kids don't go to daycare. They would never be allowed to have a job where their sole child was away from them during the day. All of these girls are doing things from home that they can do from home where they can take their kids with them. Otherwise, they would not be working. They're not allowed to have a career outside of the family. The career has to be built into the family. That's the only way they're allowed to work. He talks about humility. yet his family has affluence now. Everything is a contradiction with them, and it's just insane. So I don't live in a world where people hate people, right? I don't care what your religion is. I don't care what your politics are. But there are things that are there are rights that every United States citizen has, and it doesn't matter what your faith are. You have to respect the law. So just because you believe that someone being gay is wrong doesn't give you the right to then tell someone who is gay that they're a sinner, that they're evil, that they're wrong. It does not give you the right to harass them, degrade them, tell them that they're an abomination, call them names on my page. It also doesn't give you the right to go after people that are not Christians on my page. It also doesn't give you the right to be attacking someone over being transgender, or attacking someone who has a mental illness, or attacking someone who has a disability. You just cannot, if you can't change it, you cannot attack it. You can actually change your religion, you guys. It's not an unchangeable aspect of your life. Religion is actually changeable. You can't change your gender. If you are transgender, you have gender dysmorphia, so that's totally different. So I can't change physically. I was born a female and I'm not transgender. I can't change that. I don't want to change that, right? I can't change my sexuality. I can't change the color of my skin. I can't change the fact that I have ADHD or that I have anxiety and I have panic disorder. I can't change that. I can't change the fact that my grandparents were born in Germany and my mom grew up with German immigrant parents. I can't change that. Those are the things that you just cannot go after someone for because they can't change it. Regardless of what you think or not, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you think in the Bible it tells you that you should not accept gay people, because to be honest, when I was a Christian, and I was for years, and a Catholic, honest to God, Jesus would not ever tolerate people being hateful to anyone who was gay. He would not tolerate anyone being mean and cruel to women, to children. He would not tolerate people being horrible to people with disabilities or the poor. It was Jesus that was sitting there washing the feet of the prostitutes and helping the poor and feeding the poor. It was Jesus that was going down and showing people how to love and how to respect. And Jesus was also a Jew. He was Jewish and he was Middle Eastern and he was not white. So, again, I don't understand how anyone can proclaim to be a Christian and then spend their entire lives in the Old Testament. They want to spend like only a little bit of time in the actual New Testament. But if you're a Christian and you accept that Christ died and came for your sins and came to the world to end the rule of the law that fell underneath God before him, then you must not take what's in the Old Testament as fact. If you were to believe the Old Testament as fact, that would actually be the Torah, which is the Jewish Bible. Christians believe in Christ, which is the New Testament. You can take stories from the Old Testament and like adapt them to your life and take lessons from them. But Jesus came to abolish that rule of law. There's only like 2 rules that Jesus ever told his followers to do. Love your neighbor like yourself and love God. That was it. Jesus didn't have 10 commandments. Jesus didn't have like all these rules. The Gospels don't show any of that. People criticize me and they say that I don't know the Bible. I know the Bible. I have a Bible. I've read the New Testament back to back to back 1,000,000 times. My favorite chapter of the Bible was Romans. Loved it. I love Corinthians when they talk about love and patience and kindness. you shouldn't be taking the Bible as your self-help guide. Jesus never intended to be your self-help. Jesus wasn't a father. Jesus wasn't married. Jesus never even in the gospel told people how to be married. He never told people how to be parents. People have just completely bastardized the Bible and turned it into something that's not through faith. You can still have faith in God without turning everything that's in the Bible as this is what it is. One specific line in a passage doesn't mean anything if you don't have the context of the time, of the people that were being spoken to, specifically in the letters to Paul. One thing that I will say that bothers me about people that take Paul's letters and apply them into today's era is that Paul was speaking to specific cities at specific times, facing specific crises. That was it. He wasn't speaking to Americans. He was speaking to the Roman Empire. He was speaking to the city of Corinthians. He was speaking to whatever, I don't even have my Bible on me. My Bible's over in there. I do have a Bible. Actually, hold on a second. I'll show you that I actually have a Bible. So you believe that I actually have a Bible. 1 second. This was my Bible when I went to church, okay? Let me just find... You will see there are highlighted passages in here of things that resonated with me in various passages of this Bible. So anyone that says that just because I don't have faith now that I don't know the Bible is wrong. I mean, this is something that's in the Bible that you don't hear them talk about ever. It's Romans chapter 14, verse 12. Yes, each of us give a personal account to God. So let's stop condemning each other. Decide instead to live in such a way that you will not cause another believer to stumble and fall. Stop condemning each other. Why don't they ever say that? Why is that not ever one of their verses that they tell you to read? Because it doesn't fit their narrative. What about Romans chapter 13, verse, what is this? Verse 8. Owe nothing to anyone except for your obligation to love one another. If you love your neighbor, you will fulfill the requirements of God's law. For the commandments say you must not commit adultery, you must not murder, you must not steal, you must not covet. Adultery, weird how they never talk about that. These and other such commandments are summed up in the one commandment. This is the one commandment that Jesus gave his followers. Love your neighbor as yourself. Love does no wrong to others, so love fulfills the requirements of God's law. That's in Romans. Do you ever hear them say that? No. Because to them, they would rather use this as a weapon against other people. And it was not designed to be a weapon against anyone. And frankly, it bothers me so much, even though I'm not a Christian anymore, and even though I don't believe this anymore. If Jesus did exist, the Jesus that I have read in this Bible would be so angry at how people have turned this into a weapon to hurt each other. That's exactly what he fought against. When you read the Bible, he was fighting against all of that. Division and hatred. He just wanted people to love. And for those of you that are so obsessed with homosexuality being wrong, that was not added into the Bible until the 1960s. Homosexuality was not in the Bible until the 1960s. There was no mention of homosexuality at all. It was added in the 1960s because somebody was homophobic. And it's remained in the Bible ever since. All right. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. I hope that shows you and proves to you that I do have a Bible. But there's a reason why Romans is my favorite chapter. Was it in the 1940s? Okay, 1940s, 1960s. Either way. It was nothing, it was in modern area. It was in... $1946. Thank you. Romans is your favorite chapter too. Romans was my favorite. Yes, they added homosexuality to the Bible. We agree on so much, and I'm a Christian. You'll DM me. Okay. I leave, love one another. Exactly. That's all he wanted, was you to love. I've always honestly loved Romans. And then when I grew up Catholic, okay? And when I was going through my when I was going through confirmation, we had to have a verse that was like our verse. You know, like you had to have like your verse or whatever. And mine was Corinthians chapter 3, verse 4. Love is patient and kind. Love is not jealous or boastful or proud or rude. It does not demand its own way. It's not irritable, and it keeps no record of being wronged. It does not rejoice about injustice, but rejoices whenever the truth wins out. Love never gives up, never loses faith, and is always hopeful and endures through every circumstance. The house. I love that verse. We still have verses of the Bible in our house, even though we're not Christians, because we still believe that the Bible has beautiful stories in it. And though it might be something that you believe to be factual, to us, we just look at it as a piece of history. And we still respect the stories. I do not appreciate that Jesus was messed up. I did not say Jesus was messed up. The Bible is not meant to be a weapon, and it's also not meant to be a self-help book. Like, that's the biggest part of this, is that prosperity gospel, which was what really Bill Gothard was. He was turning the Bible into something to solve all of our answers and be the answer for everything. But God also gives you free will. And that's always what I loved about being a Christian, was that you have the free will to choose what you want and live how you want. And God gives you things in this world to actually help you. People that are so blind and say that this is the only thing, they ignore the fact that within the Bible, it talks about free will, and it talks about how there are things of this earth that you should utilize. Like going to the doctor and using mental health and having doctors and having like one of my son's doctors who saved his life is a pulmonologist and a critical care doctor. And he is a skilled scientist, but also a devout Christian. And I don't agree with him on everything, but, you know, he doesn't deny science, and he doesn't deny that science helps and medicine helps, but he gives his gift of what he's learned and his ability to help from his love from God, as though God has granted him this gift to help others. So, yeah. They are elitist snobs for sure. It's weird because when I grew up Catholic, like my family was Democrats, and I don't care if you're a conservative or a Democrat. But, you know, like I didn't grow up thinking that you should hate someone based on the color of their skin or their sexuality or if they had a mental illness. The Catholic churches in our area were super into charity and had so many services, from homeless shelters to domestic violence shelters to helping children at hospitals and families in need. And it was never, ever this thought that you shouldn't need, like you should be ashamed if you needed help. There was always this aspect of like, everyone's going to go through some period in their life where they might need help, and there's no shame in asking for help. And so these cults that make you feel ashamed for needing social services and want you to deny those rights, they're not just taking those away from adults, they're taking them away from children. And children have a right to eat. Just because their parents can't afford it doesn't mean you deny the right of a child to eat. Yeah, the Duggars aren't like into vaccines. They're not really into, the Duggars are like into medicine as long as it benefits them. I don't agree. Bill Gothard, when he designed his rules, was someone that was was anti-hippies. He hated that the culture was changing, and he hated that liberalism was taking over society. So the IBLP fundamentally was designed not only as a biblical school, but also anti-liberal agenda, social progression. He did not want anyone to have rights that infringed upon white American men. He hated it. You don't have to spend more than a few minutes in the ATI's curriculum wisdom books to see how racist this curriculum is, how sexist it is, how homophobic it is. It's No, I don't think that Catholic churches are the answer. I left the Catholic Church for a reason. I was simply just saying I grew up in a church that believed in good works, like, and helping other people. I am not by any means saying that I agree with what has happened with the cover-ups and the abuse of children in the church at all. I think it goes without saying that I've stood up against that in the past. And if you're new here and have missed that, I'm sorry. But I did leave the Catholic Church for a reason. And it had to do with how they treated women and how they actually dealt with the children being sexually abused. The IBLP doesn't specifically have a religion that it's like, or a faith denomination that it's attached to. For most people that are in it, they're part of the Baptist world. But people that are IBLP also go to like non-denominational churches or evangelical mega churches. I mean, really, they're everywhere and nowhere at all. The numbers of the IBLP are dwindling. The problem with the IBLP is that even though people have walked away from Gothardism, it has weaved into every aspect of their lives because the control is so indoctrinated into them that it's like the way one survivor described it to me, it's like pepper in cottage cheese. So you know the pepper is in the cottage cheese, but you have to pick out each specific piece of pepper. And so it's in all aspects of your life, but you don't know how to get it out. And you have to learn a new way of thinking because the way that Bill teaches the world is false. Okay, so this is what I want to say about the Platts and all these other people. Gothardism has, like I said, the pepper in the cottage cheese. Most Baptist pastors have gone through, especially the ones that are a little bit older, went through seminars by Bill Gothard. A lot of them have Gothard's books, have taken from Gothard's teachings, and a lot of millions of Baptists have gone through Gothard's seminars. It's hard to differentiate the non-IBLP from parts of the IFB because they have adopted so many of the Gothardisms, which is why people who are not in the IBLP actually have some of the same beliefs. So, and they like overlapped because the IBLP is like super expensive. You have to pay for seminars, you have to pay for the programs. So not everyone could afford it. So some people, instead of going through the IBLP, they just had it at their church or whatever. And Michael and Debbie Pearl, which is who basically started the corporal punishment side of things, wrote their book. And then that started going through all of the Baptist churches and like the Southern churches. And then it became sort of like the Bill Gothard didn't really speak to child abuse or corporal punishment very much. He kept things very like high level so that he couldn't be accused of like promoting child abuse. So that's where Michael Pearl sort of came in and filled in that blank. And so he would be at all of these seminars selling these books on it. And then they would have speakers come in that were not Bill Gothard that would talk about corporal punishment. So they just kind of start intertwining and interweaving, and the Gothardisms just sort of spill out into the other churches. So they just become a part of some of these Baptist sects because even if they're not Gothard, they still have Gothardisms. So the IBLP is most commonly found in Southern Baptists, Independent Fundamentalist Baptist, Yes, Lauren Swanson's family is in the IBLP. I actually took some photographs. I'll show you. Hold on. So you guys have asked, like, is Abby from the IBLP? Yes. So Abby Burnett and her sisters, they were in the IBLP. They grew up in the IBLP, and despite what you guys want to believe about John and Abby, they are still in the cult. Abby does not work outside of the home, even though she was a nurse before they got married. She has not worked since they got married. And then here's Joy and Carlin. This is from a photograph from the IBLP. This is the IBLP celebrating Aaron and Gregory Payne, or what's his face, Chad Payne's wedding. I have a hard feeling that Aaron was one of Gil Bates's, or Bill Gothard's victims. That's just my belief. He's like fixated on Aaron. Here is Chad Payne next to Bill Gothard, and then you see David Wallard on the end. David Waller, who is Priscilla Waller's husband and Anna Duggar's brother-in-law, he was the assistant for Bill Gothard for years, and he today is a devoted Gothard. So he ascribes to all of Gothard's beliefs. He is equally as dangerous as any of these other pastors are. Here is Laura DeMace on the stage of a IBLP event. So she is a part of the cult as well. Here's Josh Duggar giving a speech at the IBLP in 2015. This is Bill Gothard, and if you look closely, I don't think you can see, Jana is on the stage. She is the third person on the right, from inside in the right, and then Ginger is back in the back. Bill Gothard is at the front. Bill Gothard, again, someone that has been accused by multiple women of sexual harassment and sexual assault. This is a photograph of the Duggar girls speaking at an IBLP event. This is Michelle Duggar presenting at an IBLP event. That's Jill Rodriguez with Bill Gothard. So a lot of you guys have asked if Jill is IBLP. She's not, but they believe a lot of the same things as the IBLP. Well, it was on my right when I was looking at the screen. I don't know if it's on the left for you when you're looking at it. For me, it was on my right. This was back like last year. And it has, they went to 60 prisons or something. It was part of their prison ministry. And in the photo is Jed Duggar, Jeremiah Duggar, Katie Nakatsu, now Katie Duggar. There's multiple like Duggars or Duggar friends in this photo. And this is actually from last year. This is the information from the lawsuit that says that they released, they showed an utter indifference to the conscious disregard for a substantial risk of harms to the plaintiffs for her sexual abuse. And they knowingly shared the sham investigation, knowing that this public disclosure of false information would result in severe emotional distress for the Mrs. Wilkinson. So they put out a false narrative about what happened to her, which then created like her getting a lot of hate, trauma, tons of abuse from within the cult. So here it's basically explaining like how you can see Gil Bates' names are listed in there. Same with the Stephen Payne. Timothy Lewandowski is now the president of the IBLP, so he's like the new Bill Gothard, and he hasn't changed anything at all in terms of what they teach. This person is obviously a fundamentalist that hates that I'm speaking out against the IBLP. They really don't like it when you talk about them. Let's see. This is the natures of the actions, which include reckless negligence, based on intentional, reckless, negligent, and willful wanton acts, and admissions of the defendants with regard to sexual abuse and sexual harassment and similar allegations of maleficence suffered by the plaintiffs. So that was sort of they were seeking damages for what they had done, for covering up what happened to them. Here you see Gil Bates literally listed as one of the co-defendants as a part of the cover-up. These were like the main points. This actually comes from Recovering Grace's website. And again, I want to thank the admins, and I have had now several of the people that were a part of this lawsuit reach out to me and just thank me for continuing to bring this up, because while for some people they feel like this chapter of their lives is over for the IBLP, the victims, they're enduring continued trauma from what happened to them while they were in the IBLP, and still to this day dealing with trauma, PTSD, loss of identity, being shunned from their families, just their entire lives were flipped upside down, and they're still dealing with that harm that was inflicted on them by the IBLP. So failing to conduct reasonable investigations into credible allegations of sexual abuse, failing to report known allegations of sexual abuse and sexual harassment committed against adult and minor IBL participants, failing to train or supervise their staff and management. So these are sort of like the big takeaways. This is in one of the allegations where one of the girls actually says that she was being sexually abused by her father and her younger sisters, and Gothards took pleasure in learning the details and kept pressing the young woman for more explicit details of the abuse that took place. She alleges he raped her in a private suite in the IBLP when she was 17 or 18 years old. That's from the Washington Post, which was like one of the outlets that broke the story. Oh, there's one thing in here I was trying to find, and it was related to... This is where it says, the members of the IBLP board were not selected for their independence of willingness to provide the oversight necessary for a multi-million-dollar organization. Rather, the current board members were selected for their loyalty to the ministry and Bill Gothard's teachings. So this is like talking specifically to Gil Bates and the other board members. As a result of the internal investigation commissioned and paid for by the defendant, IBLP, by its management and its board of directors, they concluded without independent inquiry and investigation into claims of sexual abuse, sexual harassment, and inappropriate touching occurring in minors, adults, that no criminal or reportable conduct had occurred, and further announced on November 17th, 2014. Chad and Aaron they have not directly said they're against the IBLP. They say they're not affiliated with the ministry, but they're still very, 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 they hold on to a lot of the beliefs of the IBLP. Just because they don't affiliate with it anymore doesn't mean that they don't use the characters or whatever, the teachings. This one is Gothard attributed his teaching about adopted children to demonic fears. He taught that if adopted children were not, they should at least be ordered to earn their keep in the family home. He actually told families to get rid of their adopted children at one point in time, to send them away, put them in foster care, get rid of them, which led to extreme abuse by adoptive children. This one says that she experienced physical, emotional, and sexual abuse when she was at home with her siblings. She was raped by her father, that she had been sexually abused and human trafficked to IBLP staff, including Jenny. She had reported this to the IBLP staff, including Jenny Speed, who's passed away, spending months away from her family, attending conferences in various states, telling people about the abuse. Nothing was done. So like this.
They took their own life. I'm not saying it's right. I'm saying it happened. They should have gone to this psalm. So there's a lot of things against me. But Lord, you're my shield. I can glory in you, and you're the lifter upper of mine head. Do you ever have your children
That's Gil Bates at the IBLP in 2021 telling people that if they kill themselves or if someone commits suicide or dies by suicide, that it's their fault that they didn't go to the gospel and they didn't go to Psalms. It's their fault. They didn't do what they were supposed to do. So they blame people who die by suicide. And then having an adopted sibling that's of color does not make someone not racist. I would ask you to speak with people who have been adopted that are people of color on what their experience is like when they're adopted into a white family and whether or not there's racism that exists for them. Because overwhelmingly, those that I've spoken to say that there are racists within the familial relationships. Having a family member of color does not mean that you are not a racist. That's just factual. Kelly believes just like Gil. Kelly believes just like Gil. So it's really it's like really ridiculous. It's really offensive actually when people say, isn't one of the Bates engaged to one of those Asian girls or whatever, like however you want to frame it. Lawson being in a relationship with a girl who is, I believe, Korean or Chinese, again, does not discount the fact that the family is racist. Tiffany was raised in California by a white evangelical family. So to them, they will accept her because she was raised by white people. Tiffany is adopted. Since your video aired of the racist comments, they haven't had the Bates on their scheduled 6 a.m. slot. I didn't see that. She was an actress on Disney and on Nickelodeon. Yes, the Bates had an entire room filled with Confederate memorabilia, KKK. And then in some of these extremist groups, they are less racist to people of Asian descent than they are to African Americans. And it usually comes down to economic status. So they will view based on class, based on, there's just, it's mental gymnastics, really. There's actually right now, because the IBLP has had such a hard time getting new members, they have been more open to accepting people of color. And so they actually accept more Asian Americans into their programs than they ever did before. I don't think the Duggar girls wrote the book, because if you actually read their book and you read 20 Kids, the other book by the Duggars, the 20 Duggars and Counting, it's literally the same book. Like, they've just changed perspectives. Nobody should be supporting anyone that's in abusive cults, you know? Okay, my thing is about to go. Joy and Carlin will still be friends. All right, I gotta go.